Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my previous life, my older sister Emily resolutely dropped out of school to have a child with a wealthy, second-generation heir. However, the good times didn't last. The heir's family went bankrupt and left behind a mountain of debt. Meanwhile, Sarah started a business with a brilliant but impoverished classmate, Jake. From high school, together, we founded a company and our days grew increasingly prosperous. After graduating college, I got married to Jake, but my perpetually jealous sister Emily set her sights on my husband. Jake couldn't resist her and in the end, conspired with her to kill me in order to keep me from getting a share of our assets. When I opened my eyes again, both Emily and I had returned to our high school years. She grabbed my mother's hand, her gaze determined and sincere. "Mom, I want to go back to school." It turned out she wanted to get rid of her child and get to Jake before I could. What nonsense! I packed up my desk and handed it over to her without hesitation. When I woke up again, my mother was sitting on the floor crying bitterly while my father, seated on the couch, wore an expression of deep worry. "Emily, you're only a junior in high school. How can you drop out to have a child with some guy? You need to think about your future," my mother pleaded. "Sweetheart, your dad and I only want the best for you. Be a good girl and stay in school." "Okay." Opposite them, Emily looked annoyed. "Mom, my boyfriend is a rich second-generation heir. Even if I don't finish school, I'll never have to worry about money. I'll be a pampered rich wife someday. Those people who go to college don't necessarily marry better than I will. Stop standing in the way of my future and ruining my plans. I've made up my mind to have this child. So you and Dad might as well save your breath." As she spoke, Emily gently touched her stomach, her expression softening into a faint smile. But why did this scene feel so familiar? This was the day Emily ran away from home for love and cut ties with our parents. I glanced at the date on my phone screen and realized I had been reborn while I was lost in thought. A red apple suddenly flew toward me and landed at my feet. "Mom, stop crying already. Look, your bookworm daughter is still sitting there. She's enough for all your dreams of academic success." Emily's mocking voice echoed in my ears, bringing back a suffocating memory of betrayal in my previous life. Emily's wealthy husband, Tom, went bankrupt when their child was only 3. Burdened with debt, he desperately borrowed more money to start over but failed repeatedly due to his lack of ability. His endless failures drove him to alcoholism whenever he got drunk. Emily became his punching bag. By then, I had already co-founded an e-commerce company with Jake, the top student from my high school. Our business thrived, and by the time I graduated from college, we had gotten married. Out of pity, I offered Emily a position at my company, but she set her sights on Jake, who always prided himself on his loyalty. Succumbed to her advances. Together, they plotted to kill me and seize my assets. On a trip to the beach, they lured me into swimming in rough waters. A strong rip current dragged me under, and salt water filled my mouth and nose. I saw their triumphant smiles. It was only after my death that, as a restless spirit lingering by Jake's side, I uncovered the truth. I couldn't believe the man I had loved for 5 years had conspired to kill me. However, their betrayal didn't bring them happiness. Tom discovered their affair and, in a fit of rage on a stormy night, stabbed Emily to death. As her life slipped away, she seemed to see my ghost. The resentment and fury in her eyes burned into my memory. She wasn't mourning her betrayal or mistake but lamenting her unfulfilled dreams of wealth and luxury. She had gone to such lengths to eliminate me, only to meet a brutal end herself. My parents' sobs pulled me back to the present. When I looked at Emily, she gave me a meaningful smile before clasping my mother's hands. "Mom, I thought it through. I want to go back to school," Emily said suddenly, eager and determined. Her sudden change of heart could mean only one thing: she had been reborn too. My mother, overjoyed at her eldest daughter's newfound resolve, broke into a smile through her tears. "Sweetheart, I'm so glad you've come to your senses." "Mom, I'm not strong academically. Can I go back to sophomore year? I'd like to be in the same class as Sarah," Emily said, throwing me a smug, challenging glance. So, she planned to use proximity to get a head start on courting Jake, the golden ticket. I sneered inwardly. "Fool, even in this life, you won't live the luxurious life you covet." This was her plan. I would happily let her dig her own grave. My parents, thrilled that Emily was finally focused on her studies, pulled strings to place her in my class. She aborted her child and decisively broke up with her rich boyfriend. To Emily, Jake and I were now the only obstacles to her dream of becoming a wealthy wife. "Sarah, this time I'll take everything from you: your man, your wealth, and your status," she whispered in my ear, her smile both smug and sinister. I chuckled coldly. "Go ahead and try." Emily, infuriated by my taunt, turned red with anger. "Just you wait. Don't cry when you lose." She strutted away in a white dress, flaunting herself like a peacock. I knew this game all too well. My parents had always favored Emily, who was confident and eloquent, while I was introverted and awkward. Even in our previous life, when I caught Emily and Jake kissing in the kitchen, my mother defended her. My mom didn't criticize Emily at all. Instead, she kept everything under wraps, maintaining a facade of peace. Meanwhile, Jake, my husband of 5 years, was effortlessly seduced by her. Because of this, Emily always had the upper hand in front of me. She only saw Jake's polished, successful side, completely unaware that all of it had been built on my hard work and support. Now that I have been given a second chance, I'm not sure if she'll succeed, needing getting close to Jake. But one thing is certain, she'll never become the wealthy wife she dreams of being. The moment Emily entered the classroom, whispers erupted among the boys. Finally, we have a beauty in our class, black hair, white dress, those big round eyes. She's my ideal type. Huh, you dream on, she'd never look at you. Can't I at least admire her from afar? Oh wait, she's looking this way. It wasn't surprising. Emily was good-looking and knew how to dress, which naturally attracted attention, compared to plain high school girls like us, who only focused on studying. But so what? Instead of relying on looks to win over others, I wanted to defeat them with my abilities. Emily, introduce yourself, the teacher said warmly, gesturing for her to step onto the podium. Emily smiled sweetly and said, "Hi everyone, my name is Emily. I'm so happy to join class too. I hope we can all get along well. I'm not very strong academically, so I hope you won't mind if I fall behind. Of course, I'll do my best." Then she cast a glance at me and added, "Oh, by the way, Sarah over there is my little sister. She's the top student in this class. If any of you bully her, you'll have to answer to me." Her words sparked a wave of chatter. What? Emily is so gorgeous and Sarah is so plain. Are they really sisters? Maybe Emily inherited all the good genes. What's she trying to say? Has anyone ever bullied Sarah? Does she go home and complain about us? And here I thought Sarah was honest and kind. Emily's statement not only painted herself as noble and protective, but also dragged me into a storm of gossip. This time, however, I refused to be a pushover. Under everyone's gaze, I stood up, looked straight at Emily on the podium and said, "That's an interesting way to put it, Emily. I've never said anyone in this class bullied me. But you, my dear sister, haven't exactly been kind to me behind the scenes." Why the sudden urge to play the role of the good big sister? As I spoke, I rolled up my sleeve, revealing the faint marks on my arm. The room fell into stunned silence, and the teacher, sensing the tension spiraling out of control, quickly asked Emily to step down. Passing by my desk, Emily shot me a glare but then softened her expression into a sweet smile when she caught sight of Jake sitting next to me. Jake, however, wasn't looking at her. His gaze was fixed on the marks on my arm. "Does it hurt?" he asked, his clear eyes reflecting concern. For a brief moment, his sincerity seemed almost genuine. But I knew better. Eventually, he would prioritize his own selfish desires over my life. I didn't answer him directly. Instead, I pulled down my sleeve, blocking his view. After a pause, I said coldly, "Class is starting. Stop staring at me." After class, Emily cornered me at the staircase. "So what if you exposed me, Sarah? I don't care what they think. The only one I'm interested in is your little deskmate, and soon enough, he'll be mine." The next morning, I realized what she meant. She used the excuse of needing help with her studies to ask the teacher, share if she could switch seats and have Jake as her deskmate. The teacher looked at me hesitantly. "Sarah, are you okay with this?" Being one of the top students in the class, my opinion naturally carried some weight. Emily looked at me smugly as if she had already won, but Jake, sitting beside me, tugged at my sleeve like a pitiful child. "Sarah, please don't let them switch. I only want to sit with you." I knew he had a slight fondness for me. At this point, I was kind to him, never looking down on him like the others did because of his shabby, worn-out shoes. Around me, he didn't feel inferior. Instead, he received encouragement and praise. In our previous life, on the day of our high school graduation, he confessed to me, saying I was his son, bringing warmth and light to his life. Back then, I had been deeply moved by his sincerity. But now his vain vulnerability stirred no pity in me. I smiled graciously at the teacher. "I'm fine with it if Emily is so eager to study. How could I refuse?" Relieved, the teacher quickly made the switch. "Sarah, why?" Jake's voice trembled with disbelief, tinged with anger. "You promised you'd only ever sit next to me. Why are you going back on your word?" In our previous life, he had said the same thing during our wedding, vowing to love me for a lifetime, and yet that so-called lifetime lasted barely a year. Now, only a fool would still believe in such promises. This was the teacher's decision. "Jake," I said indifferently. I let out a deliberately helpless sigh, fighting reluctance while my eyes conveyed a hint of regret. yet my actions showed no hesitation. In the next moment, I dragged my desk away from its original position. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Jake clenching his fists tightly, his dark, almond-shaped eyes brimming with unwillingness and frustration, in stark contrast. Emily was practically wagging her tail like an eager puppy. Jake, from now on I'll be your new desk mate. If there's anything I don't understand, can I ask you for help? She said in a sweet, sugary tone, her big eyes blinking innocently. Her words, paired with her cutesy demeanor, could easily melt anyone's resolve. The male classmates around them couldn't help but cast envious glances at Jake. He avoided their gazes with visible irritation, slamming the textbook he was holding onto the desk with a loud thud. Emily immediately looked grieved, tears welling up in her eyes. Later, when I was in the cafeteria looking for a place to sit, Jake suddenly appeared in front of me, blocking my way. His brows were furrowed and his tone carried a trace of grievance. Why didn't you call me to eat with you? Are we just strangers now because we're not desk mates anymore? Jake and I had shared a desk for a year, and during that time, we also ate together daily. His family wasn't well off, so he always chose the cheapest meal option. Seeing his thin face and arms made me feel bad for him. I often pretended to have a small appetite and ordered large portions of meat, then asked him to finish the food. I couldn't eat. I knew his pride wouldn't allow him to accept my charity directly. So this roundabout method let me help him without hurting his ego. Over the course of the year, Jake's health visibly improved. He was no longer the frail boy he once was, yet, after my death, I learned he had seen my kindness as condescension, a form of pity that made him feel perpetually inferior. On the other hand, Emily's blatant admiration and fawning satisfied his vanity. He truly had no idea how to appreciate genuine goodwill. I glanced past Jake to see Emily in the distance, her face dark with jealousy. I smiled faintly and replied, "Don't you already have someone to eat with?" I didn't call you. Without waiting for his response, I chose a random seat and sat down. Jake followed me and picked a seat nearby, with Emily begrudgingly sitting next to him. Throughout the meal, I could feel Jake's gaze drifting toward me repeatedly, while Emily's attempts to serve him food went entirely ignored. Her mounting frustration was written all over her face, and I could sense she wanted nothing more than to tear me apart. After lunch, Emily stormed over to confront me. "Sarah, you only switched desks because you wanted to play hard to get and catch Jake's attention. I can't believe how calculating you are. Why didn't I see the side of you before?" I couldn't be bothered to argue with her. "Think whatever you like," I said flatly. From that day on, Jake started finding excuses to talk to me and even silently followed me to the cafeteria. Emily naturally began glaring at me with resentment every time, but this dynamic didn't last long. About a week later, Jake stopped seeking me out entirely. Instead, whenever we crossed paths, he would give me a strange contemplative look. It didn't take much to figure out that Emily had been filling his ears with gossip, embellishing her side of the story to make me look bad. Ironically, she had done me a favor. I had been looking for a way to rid myself of Jake entirely, and now, it seemed like fate was taking care of it for me. In this life, all I wanted was for the two of them to stay as far away from me as possible. That afternoon during gym class, I suddenly felt weak, my vision blurred, and I fainted. Before I could steady myself, just before everything went dark, I saw a familiar figure rushing toward me. When I regained consciousness, I was lying on a bed in the school infirmary. "You're awake. Does your head still hurt?" Jake's face was close to mine, his worry evident. I frowned, confused. Hadn't he believed Emily's lies? Why was he still concerned about me? His proximity made me uncomfortable, so I gently pushed his shoulder. Realizing how close he was, he flushed bright red and quickly backed away. The sight of him blushing reminded me of our first kiss. It had happened on graduation night after we both had a little to drink. The kiss was brief and awkward, a fleeting moment that left both of us red-eared and flustered. Remembering that now, a surge of irritation and bitterness rose within me, hitting me like bamboo shoots breaking through the soil in spring. My expression instantly turned cold. "Hold on, I'm fine. You can leave now," I said icily. Jake hesitated, unwilling to leave. "Sarah, is there some misunderstanding between you and Emily? I've been around her for the past 2 weeks, and I really don't think she's a bad person. You're sisters, there's no need to be so hostile toward each other." Hearing this self-righteous nonsense, I wasn't surprised anymore. In our previous life, it had taken Emily less than a month to seduce Jake. Some people are just delusional, thinking they can see through everyone's motives. Others love to play the role of a moral guide, believing their insights are superior and meant to enlighten others. Jake was both arrogant and presumptuous to his core. "Jake, this isn't your business. If you're trying to defend Emily, save your breath. I have no interest in arguing with you." I replied INDIFFERENTLY. Jake sighed. Sarah, I'm just worried about you. You don't have to be so defensive. It's not Emily's fault your parents are biased toward her. You shouldn't take it out on her. I stared at his familiar face, now seeming like that of a stranger. Had I ever truly known him? Jake, what position do you think you're in to lecture me? Emily's boyfriend. Even then, you have no right. Instead of trying to play mediator, why don't you focus on your relationship with Emily? She seems to like you a lot, I said with a mocking smile. You seem to care a lot about her, a top student and a beauty. Don't they make a great match? I remarked sarcastically. The bitterness in my tone was barely concealed. Jake's face flushed with anger as he retorted, Sarah, you're just like a dog biting the hand that feeds it. I'm only trying to be a good friend and help you mend your relationship with Emily. Why? Do you have to be so hostile? Well, thank you for your kindness, but I don't need it. And I certainly don't need friends like you, I said, my voice cold and cutting. You're impossible, Jake snapped, storming off in frustration. Fine, have it your way. Don't forget to close the door on your way out, I added nonchalantly, watching him leave. Jake's oversized pride would ensure he stayed away from me for the foreseeable future, and that was perfectly fine by me, but only 2 days later. Rumors began circulating in class that Jake liked me. Apparently, people had seen him carrying me to the infirmary that day, and it sparked the gossip. Before I could address the situation, Jake stepped in himself. Everyone, please don't misunderstand, he announced loudly in class. Sarah and I are just former desk mates, nothing more. I only helped her that day out of basic decency. It wasn't personal, so let's not spread unnecessary rumors. His words silenced the class. But the looks I received were worse than ever: sympathy, pity, and disdain. They all understood the same thing. I had once been close to Jake. But as soon as a confident beauty like Emily appeared, I was discarded without hesitation. Not far away, Emily gazed at Jake with tears, her expression full of admiration. Jake, noticing her earnest look, blushed faintly, the corners of his mouth lifting ever so slightly in a pleased smile. The scene was nauseating. Uninterested in their performance, I buried myself in my notes. Feelings could change, but knowledge never betrayed me. After class, Emily followed me to the restroom. Sarah, I told you Jake would be mine. Now do you believe me? You spent all that time boosting his self-esteem and even shared your food with him for a year, but all it took for me was a few sweet words to win him over. Face it, you're a failure. I glanced at her indifferently. Haven't you ever heard anything that can be stolen wasn't worth keeping in the first place? Keep pretending you don't care, she sneered. Suddenly, Emily turned on the faucet and splashed water onto her own head before bursting into loud, dramatic sobs. Sarah, I know you like Jake, but he doesn't like you. How can you blame me for that? She wailed. Her cries quickly attracted a crowd of curious classmates outside the restroom. Emily's tear-streaked face and pitiful demeanor drew their sympathy, while their eyes turned toward me with a mixture of disdain and disgust. Sarah, Emily continued, sniffling theatrically, if you like Jake so much, I'll stop spending time with him. As your sister, I'd never steal someone you care about. Before long, Jake showed up, his expression one of righteous indignation. Positioning himself protectively in front of Emily, he glared at me. Sarah, I don't like you. Why are you taking it out on Emily? No wonder she says you're so sensitive and hot-tempered. Now I see she's right. I used to think you were kind and considerate, but I was wrong, he said, his tone full of reproach. I rolled my eyes, turned around, and grabbed a small bucket of water. Without hesitation, I threw it over both Jake and Emily. Gasps erupted from the onlookers as the water drenched the pair. They stood there, dripping wet and stunned, looking like two pathetic wet dogs. Feeling calmer now, I asked, my voice icy, Jake, when did I ever say I liked you? Did you dream that up? For the past week, you've been the one pestering me. Now that I'm ignoring you, you can't handle it, can you? And Emily, my dear sister, if you're going to set me up, maybe next time don't dump water on yourself, or better yet, stab yourself with a knife. That might make your act more convincing. Looking at the crowd, I continued, since so many of you are watching, let me make this clear. From now on, the two of you better stay out of my way. Next time, it won't just be water. Emily's face turned from red to white in disbelief, her hands trembling as she clung to Jake for support. The incident ended with all three of us being called to the teacher's office. However, with my academic record being impeccable, the teacher gave me a mere token reprimand before dismissing the matter. Emily, furious that I hadn't been severely punished, went crying to our mom. But it didn't matter after discovering how she had hidden Illy and Jake's betrayal in my past life. I no longer considered her my mother. Her words and actions held no power over me. Time in high school flew by, and soon we were in our senior year. Not long after the new term began, news spread that Emily and Jake were officially dating. They didn't bother hiding it. flaunting their relationship openly between classes, in empty classrooms, on the track field, and even in the small grove behind the school. But time is a fair teacher. The more effort they poured into their romance, the less they had for their studies. During our first monthly exam, Jake dropped from the top 3 in class to 10th place. Meanwhile, I climbed from 5th to 2nd. As for Emily, her performance remained consistently at the bottom. When the teacher learned about their relationship, both sets of parents were called in for a meeting. Jake's mother, a weary woman who had struggled to raise him alone after his father abandoned them, looked distraught as she stood outside the office. Her plain clothes and careworn face told the story of a life filled with hardship. When I got home, my mom was sitting on the couch, sighing dramatically at Emily, who sat across from her. Emily, it's bad enough you don't study hard, but now you're dating too. At least before you had the sense to go after a rich heir. But now what's wrong with your judgment? You've chosen a nobody without a shred of potential. I remembered how she'd reacted the same way when I first started dating Jake. She had dismissed him entirely, only to later change her tune when our business exceeded. Suddenly, Jake was the perfect son-in-law. She couldn't stop bragging about him. Mom, trust me, Emily said, smiling confidently. Jake is a top student. He'll achieve great things someday. But my mom was unimpressed. Yet this time he only placed 10th in class while your sister is 2nd. I don't see what's so great about him. Just wait and see, Mom. He's a hidden gem. Once he's in college, I'll start a business with him. When your daughter and son-in-law become successful, I'll make sure you live like a queen. Envied by everyone, Emily was as good at selling dreams as she was at charming people. In no time, my mom's frustration melted into smiles and laughter. But when they noticed me walking in, their cheerful expressions froze. Ever since the incident where I dumped water on Emily, my mom had insisted I apologize. I'd refused, leading to an extended Cold War between us. Having lived this life once before, I came to understand many things. I no longer craved my parents' affection. Some things, no matter how hard you try, simply can't be earned. No matter how obedient or excellent I was, in my mom's heart, Emily would always come first. Despite the school notifying their parents, Jake and Emily didn't dial down their behavior. They continued flaunting their relationship, often sneaking out during self-study sessions and returning just before class ended, their faces flushed. By the 3rd monthly exam, Jake's grades had plummeted to 20th, though he was anxious about it. Emily's constant reassurances and grand promises quickly eased his concerns. The once envied beauty and brains couple had now become the class joke. Meanwhile, with their distractions gone, I secured the top spot in class for 2 consecutive exams, ranking 3rd in the entire grade. When Tom, Emily's former wealthy boyfriend, learned about her new relationship, he felt betrayed. She had claimed she needed to focus on her studies to avoid compromising her future, only to turn around and date someone else. Furious, Tom ambushed Jake and Emily outside the school gates one afternoon, bringing a group of friends with him. The altercation ended with all 5 of them being hauled to the police station. Jake walked away with a fractured hand but spent his compensation money on expensive cosmetics to please Emily. It was almost comical. Jake spared no expense on Emily despite his mother's sacrifices, eating the simplest meals just to support him. Emily, of course, couldn't resist showing off to me, constantly boasting about her love story with Jake while counting down the days until she could become Mrs. Jake. Half a year later, June arrived, and with it, the college entrance exams. A year and a half of effort culminated into days of relentless writing. When the tests were over, I felt confident. I was certain I'd get into a university, the school I'd attended in my past life. Jake, however, looked troubled, his face clouded with worry. During the final mock exam before the real thing, he had hit an all-time low, barely scoring above the cutoff for first-tier universities. Sarah, how do you think you did? Jake asked, his tone awkward as if he were reluctant to speak to me. I glanced at him and smiled faintly. Better than you, I'm sure. He laughed bitterly. I'm definitely not getting into a university. When we'd first become desk mates, we both dreamed of attending a university and had promised to meet there after the exams, but Jake had long since lost sight of his original goals, veering off course. As I turned to leave, Emily suddenly appeared, looping her arm through Jake's possessively, like a hen protecting her chick. Sarah, after a year of pretending, you're finally showing your true colors, trying to steal my boyfriend, she sneered. I gave her and Jake a withering look before tossing out birds of a feather and walking away. Foolishness I'd heard was contagious, and I had no intention of catching it. I needed my brain for more important things like building my future business. A little over 2 weeks later, the results came out. I had scored 680, my best performance all year, securing my spot at a university. Jake, on the other hand, barely cleared the first tier cutoff by 5 points. While Emily didn't even pass the undergraduate threshold eventually. They enrolled in a local university and a vocational college, respectively. I, however, returned to the city where my dreams had once flourished. On the first day of school at the gates of a university I ran into, Ethan was wearing a crisp white shirt, just as he had in my past life, exuding the same warmth and charm. "Excuse me, are you from the computer science department?" he asked, smiling kindly. Looking at his familiar face, I felt my eyes grow hot with unshed tears. "Yes, I am. My name is Sarah. I'm a new student in the computer science department. I'm Ethan, a junior. Let me show you to the dorms." In my past life, Ethan had provided me with $50 during my most difficult times. I thought he'd done it purely because he believed in my potential. But later I learned he had long harbored feelings for me. At the time, I was already dating Jake. So Ethan kept his feelings hidden, silently supporting me from the shadows. On the day I was buried, Ethan spent the entire night by my grave. He had told me his greatest regret was being too timid to fight for me, allowing my husband and sister to conspire against me. After my death, Ethan sought revenge, destroying Jake's company and leaving him drowning in debt. That evening, when Ethan's familiar and confident figure appeared in class, it felt like destiny had given me another chance. I soon learned that Ethan was our class advisor. In my previous life, I had only gotten to know him through a mentor's research project. The moment he entered the room, our eyes met. His dark gaze held a depth of emotion, tenderness, and longing that didn't belong in a first meeting. I couldn't shake the feeling throughout the entire class. After it ended, I rushed out of the room, my thoughts in turmoil. Under the amber glow of the street lights, Ethan's shadow stretched long and thin, as if it had crossed seasons just to meet me again. When I reached him, it became clear that he'd been waiting for me. "Ethan," I called softly, my voice trembling. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady but his eyes rimmed with red. "I'm back." He smiled faintly, and his hand hovered in the air, seemingly wanting to ruffle my hair but hesitating. I saw the restraint in his eyes and leaned my head forward, encouraging him. In our previous life, Ethan had died in a car accident on a rainy night shortly after avenging me by destroying Jake's business. In his final moments, he had whispered my name over and over. Now he had been reborn too. If our first meeting in my past life was a twist of fate, then this reunion was his carefully planned effort. After reuniting, it took me 3 months of persistent effort to win Ethan over. He, on the other hand, seemed eager to formalize our relationship from the start. "Sarah," he teased one day, "this doesn't feel like you're chasing me. It feels like you're torturing me." I smiled mischievously. "But you silently watched over me for 5 years in the last life. I've only been pursuing you for 3 months. Don't you think I'm still behind? All right. I suppose I'll endure this a little longer and let you have your way," he said with a playful sigh. Without hesitation, I threw myself into his arms, inhaling the faint lemony scent that seemed to linger on him. I could never get enough. As his hand cued my cheek, I abruptly pulled away. "No. This won't do. We're not officially boyfriend and girlfriend yet." No hugging allowed. Ethan let out a resigned sigh before wrapping me firmly in his embrace. "I'm the one being pursued. So I make the rules. Starting today, I'm officially your boyfriend." Once we were together, we juggled our studies with launching a business with memories of my past life to guide us. We avoided countless pitfalls and sped through the startup process. When the company made its first profit, we invested in several blue ocean projects. Over the next few years, success was inevitable. Meanwhile, Emily's dream of becoming a wealthy wife never came true. Instead, she and Jake lived a life of constant struggle, desperate to tie Jake down. Emily even tried for a pregnancy, but it ended in a miscarriage. Later, she secretly sold my mom's wedding jewelry to fund Jake's business. But the money went down the drain after several failed attempts. Jake finally admitted he lacked the talent for entrepreneurship and gave up. But Emily refused to let go, determined to claw her way to wealth. She pressured him into taking out a large online loan. Predictably, their business failed again and debt collectors began hounding them daily. One night, Emily called me in tears. I could hear the relentless pounding on her door in the background. "Sarah," she sobbed, "please. As my sister, help me. I know you've made so much money. Can't you spare a little for Jake and me?" In my past life, she had used the same pitiful act to manipulate me. Out of pity, I had given her a stable job and a decent salary, only for her to betray me later. She was the snake in the fable, biting the hand that saved her. "Emily," I said coldly, "money doesn't grow on trees. I have employees to pay, orders to fulfill, and suppliers to reimburse. Where do you think I'd find spare cash?" "I know you're still mad about Jake," she stammered. "If you want, I'll give him back to you right now." I laughed. "No thanks, I'm Not in the habit of picking up trash. Besides, you fought so hard to take him. How could you give him up so easily? You two deserve each other." My voice carried a sharp edge of mockery. Emily and Jake's failure wasn't just due to their lack of ability. I had played a hand in ensuring their downfall, even influencing the debt collector's persistence. I wasn't some saint who repaid evil with kindness. I was a thorned rose, determined to seek revenge. Years of endurance and patience had been for this moment. After I hung up on Emily's desperate call, she and Jake were brutally beaten by the debt collectors. Jake, furious over their failure, took out his anger on Emily. "This is all your fault," he shouted. Lashing out, "I told you I'm not cut out to be a boss, but you kept pushing me. My mom even gave up her retirement savings for me. Are you happy?" Now, he threw punches and insults at her, his rage boiling over. "Why did you seduce me in the first place? I could have gone to a top university like Sarah. But you ruined me. I don't know why you've been cozying up to your ex. What were you hoping to squeeze money out of him for? You have no shame." The abuse continued for some time until both of them eventually disappeared, leaving no trace behind. As for me, the flower that bloomed in the muck, I would continue to thrive, bold and unrestrained.